Look Mom No Computer joined me for a conversation just a few weeks before Superbooth. So we've created this platform that allows you to design your own synths. This conversation was about education in general, about teaching and teaching techniques, about perfectionism and how horrible it is to be an artist that is always trying to be perfect in what they do and how problematic this might be. We talked about a lot of other stuff like productivity, because a lot of people on Reddit asked me, or on Discord also asked me to ask him, how does he manage to do so many things? And we talked about failure in general, which there is in the end a little thing that you might want to watch in the end. That's just kind of funny. Anyway, I'm going to keep this introduction short because I have a lot of work to do on the logistical side of Simple to make sure that all the people who supported the initiative and actually bought it during Superbooth are going to get it on time, which is a challenge because I've never done any logistics because I'm a teacher, not a logistics person. But you know, you live, you learn, and there are a lot of insightful and exciting things I'm learning from people around me. I'm going to figure this out as well. Without further ado, this is Sam Battle, Look Mom No Computer. Enjoy.
Hey, got it.
Yes.
Anyway, so how's it going?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
Yeah, not bad, not bad.
So
Is the audio all right? I'm sorry, I haven't actually got any microphones here.
yeah, no, it's fine. I think this is actually a really good angle. If I would imagine how I would capture Look Mom No Computer on a podcast, it would be from this angle while you're actually doing something.
Okay, good.
I think one of the main questions that people ask me to ask you is like, how do you manage to finish so many things? And I think this is probably how.
I mean, if I'm honest, I don't think I finished that much enough. I don't think like people mention that they comment that I work sort of quickly, but I don't see that. I find myself working pretty slowly, so I don't know. I didn't think I did. That's the thing.
Okay.
I guess I work. When I know something needs to be done, I'll work all every hour that is required, I guess.
Yeah. What are you working on at the moment?
I am building something for a machine for this weekend. I realized that it needed, like we said, I realized it needed to be done. So I'm sitting here making an LED signal board for a robot that speaks over AI using Bordeaux code to a Raspberry Pi, which answers your questions. I don't know do you remember the MS-DOS program MegaHal? You remember MegaHal?
I do.
And it learns what you're talking about and it responds to you in a certain way. Well, that's what we're running on. So it's nearly done. Hopefully be done by the end of the day. But just like I mentioned, I've got to go over to this museum's not obsolete. Next to that building is another museum, which is a computer museum, and they've been closed throughout the pandemic, and they've decided to open again finally, just to get going again. And they were like, "Oh, Sam, give us a hand." So I'm going to be going over there, hopefully giving them a hand and stuff today. So I've got to try and fit this in and that in. It's all hands on deck, I tell you.
Got it. Okay. So we're going to try to make this as efficient as possible.
No, don't worry about it. I shouldn't have even mentioned it. I was just double checking, because sometimes podcasts are like 5 hours long, aren't they? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would imagine we could probably talk for 3-4 hours easy, but not over Zoom. I think that's going to be a bit hard.
I don't know, over Zoom. I mean, it's doable. The thing is, I find is I can talk for hours if I've got something to do with my hands. I can't talk for hours if I'm just talking. Like you're sitting there, you're talking. I don't know whether I could do that for an hour, 4 hours, 5 hours.
That makes sense.
Unless it was about Warhammer, which I haven't played for ages. Warhammer or Pokemon. Just trying to relive the love of that from when you were a kid. So much money, that stuff. I didn't realize it was. It must have gone up. It's crazy money. Do you know Warhammer? Do you get Warhammer over there?
No, to be honest, I'm not really sure what
Oh,
you're talking about.
oh, you don't know what Warhammer is? It's like this. You know those little figurines, like Space Marines. Have you heard of Space Marines?
Yeah, let me just look it up.
It's like an English Dungeons. And I don't even know what you could call. There's, I'm sure there's an equivalent.
Okay.
Games Workshop, Warhammer. Don't know.
Warhammer. It's like one word, retail and like fantasy board games.
Yeah, okay. That I don't even know. I just like painting them. I remember when I was a kid, I made a load of them, and then I was like, finally, I'm ready to play the game. And I went to go and play the game, and it was so boring. I was just like, this is not what I want to do. I'm happy painting them and building them and making them do cool things, but my gosh, the actual game was, oh my god, I just wanted to go home and carry on painting. Not for me. And I think there's a lot of people who have a similar experience. But hey,
Let me ask you a question, maybe a relevant question to this.
yeah,
If you think about the work that you're doing, like you're doing a lot of different things. Obviously, you're coming up with ideas, you're building things, you're literally building channels for you to express yourself and share things with the world, like the museum, for
yeah,
instance. But you're also playing music.
yeah.
Um,
Well, I find that I go through different times. Like I've spoke to some people about that life. I don't know what. So you know, you go through phases. Of course, you spend a month being obsessed by actually building, and then a month obsessed by actually using. And I try to. I still write every day. I make sure I write for at least an hour or two a day. Sometimes I mean, about quite often I have to go and do songwriting sessions with people and stuff. So, which, funnily enough, I never use any of the machines in it because they usually want to write like pop rock songs. So I can't even use my synthesizers. So yeah, but I do both. It's just life's too short, really.
So like, do you see yourself like is there like a certain schedule that you're following to like make sure that you're actually writing every day and also doing all the other stuff that you challenge yourself to do?
Nah, I just I get guilty when I don't.
Right.
So I feel guilty. I feel like bad about myself. So I just it just sort of manages to happen. I mean, it's not strict. I reckon, you know, I do miss a few days here and there. In fact, I go through phases of missing a week at a time and then just going back into it. But just making sure that I try to do it, and it sort of works. Even like I'd say, as long as it's like a concentrated half an hour is like a solid amount. As long as you're in the right mood, it's about getting in the mood, isn't it? The creative juices mood, because you
Definitely.
could sit and write the same old crap for ages, or you could just, and then one day, and then half an hour suddenly comes along where you just do the, you know, better than anything you've done all week or something.
Do you have rituals?
Sorry?
Do you have rituals?
Nah, none of that. But the only ritual I have is go to bed, wake up, try not to be I mean, I've found myself become a lot busier recently, and that is a problem because busyness is the basically the opposite of you know, a creative, you know, it's not very healthy being busy if you're trying to be creative, I don't think. And it's really easy to be busy, isn't it?
Yeah, it
And
is.
I thought at the start I wanted to be busy. I was like, I want to, like, being busy looks good, but actually being busy just, it's not the right thing. I found that it's not good. So I'm trying to, like, I've learned the power of saying a no a lot more, which is weird. Like, part of growing up is I was saying yes to nearly everything, and then I realized that it was just making me unbelievably busy, that I couldn't actually do the thing that I was actually doing.
Yeah.
So yeah, the power of no sometimes has to happen.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
think
go on
that's actually.
holidays either. Sorry.
Sorry, come again?
Well, I don't like much to my girlfriend's dismay. I'm a no holiday kind of guy. I just
Yeah,
don't.
but
Sorry.
yeah, I guess, but that's a little bit of a different thing. Like I can imagine that you're a bit of a workaholic. But let's get back to that like idea of saying no and focusing on
Sure.
certain things that you really think are important. Um,
Mm-hmm.
like how do you find yourself choosing these projects that you're going to be focusing on? Is there like like a couple of months time, you're just going to be focusing on a certain like concept, or like focusing on a technology and then working on a bunch of concepts with like one kind of like direction? Like, how do you approach that?
So the way I've found that works is to not plan anything and just go with what you're obsessed by at that moment. I've found that I've gone through phases of trying to make a strict schedule of what I'm going to do, and I think it's a lot easier if you're working with other people, in which is different. It's like team working because you're egging each other on to actually be focused more. But if you're by yourself, I find that there's no point scheduling absolutely anything. You've just got to go with what you're feeling. And the problem is sometimes you're not even feeling like doing anything, and those are the worst, because your brain's like a fog, isn't it? Yeah, it's like you're trying to do something, but it's like, oh, I won't get into that, it's too big of a job to do right now. And those are the worst times, and I haven't got an answer for those.
Yeah, I feel like there is that, you know, that moment of excitement when you're starting a new project. You're so inspired by something that you've seen, or something that you've done or discovered, and then you start something. And then at a certain point, this kind of like hill that you were on is becoming like a mountain. You're like, how do I finish this? Like, how do you
That
approach
happens.
these moments? Yeah.
I think that happens with, I mean, that happens with everybody. Like, just wanting to, starting something is so much easier than finishing something. That's for sure. And it takes, I mean, I think it's easy being the idea person, you know, having loads of ideas and stuff, because, you know, they just turn up. It's like, you're just training yourself to be a little bit freer and more creatively minded. Like, it's a whole other kettle of fish actually going through with things and seeing them till the end. And I'm not great at it. I just it's a weird one. Some things, some machines, some projects are just too big, and then you lose your obsession. That's the worst when that happens, when it turns into a slog. But sometimes you just got to see it through. Sometimes the projects are so big that, you know, you just it's a slow burner. I'm not really the kind of person that, you know, when they say, I love it, you know, like it's like in a documentary or a news, it's like, this person spent 10 years building this table. It's like, wow, that's 10 years. You didn't spend 10 years building this table. You probably spent 9 years and 11 months procrastinating from building it, you know. And I've done that a couple of times, but there's no point saying you've spent 9 years doing it, because you haven't.
No, it's never like that. But of course, it's not black and white. But like, I totally get what you mean. Like, if you think about projects you've started and you could not finish, and you still feel like you're frustrated about it, like they didn't really shape into something else. Like, can you think about something like that?
Well, that's another thing. Like having an idea, and then actually the reality is hardly ever the same as the idea. There's a lot of things that come into play. Like, your brain's very good at thinking it knows how to simulate how something's going to turn out, but actually it's actually awful at it. It's really rubbish. Like especially like on YouTube, for instance. I mean, it's so easy to make a suggestion to somebody about what they should do with something. So, oh, you just, you know, like somebody, like, let's say you've got a problem with your pointing on your building, and you've got render over it, I don't know, and it's like, oh, just knock off the render. It's easy as that. But then you think about it, that's actually 2 weeks worth of work. But when you comment an idea, when you say something, or when you mention like a solution, your brain just doesn't think about how much hard work it is, and then you're optimistic, and then boom, you have to do it, and my gosh, it's always a bit of a pain, isn't it?
Indeed. I think that the most frustrating, and like at a certain point you get used to it, like when you're a craftsman and you're making things and you're used to making things, you understand how complicated things might be. And then someone says something like this, and you're like, I can't even start. Like, there is a huge gap of knowledge here that I need to cover with you, to the point that I'll be able to actually explain how complicated that is.
Yeah, I mean, but at the same time, it could be a simple thing, just extremely laborious.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah. Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you're right.
but it's just like it just the craft of actually getting things done, especially in a multidisciplinary, like, I feel like people who work on a lot of different things, you know, like you're soldering now, but then you could also code something on Arduino, and then you need to learn how I don't know, a certain mechanical thing works because you have that idea that you want to build, and like every time incrementally you're adding more and more knowledge, and then when you come up with an idea, the idea is basically formed out of all these different things, bits and pieces that you came up with and you gathered in the past like 10 or 15 years.
Sure.
And then you need to cut a lot of corners to actually get things done, because there's just so much stuff to do. And I just had a conversation with a few students about perfectionism and how awful perfectionism is.
Perfectionism can be a plague. I used to be a bit of a perfectionist, and I know a few perfectionists. The problem with it is you just don't get anything done.
Yeah.
Like there's just like sometimes you just got to roll with it, and actually it depends what kind of what's the word what discipline you're in. And I to be honest, I don't think any discipline really suits perfectionism. And I think that comes with that's a lesson that I learned in my early 20s, probably. Just like you've just got to roll with the. Luckily, we're in an artistic discipline, so we've got to sometimes roll with the imperfections that humans, lay on, because it's just no point. Then 9 times out of 10, when you try to work towards perfectionism in an artistic world, like engineering artistic thing, you lose all of the imperfect spirit of it, it being something human. In fact, working towards perfectionism sometimes, well, quite a lot of times, makes it quite boring.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know, just rant number 25,000. But it's like I record people's it's not always the time. I probably do like overall about a month a year recording other people's albums, working in the producing faculty, in the producing seat kind of thing. And 9 times out of 10, it's people managing and just mentioning that, you've got to sometimes just roll with it and roll with what's going, because working towards perfectionism is just gonna tire you out.
Yeah, I feel like there is something unprofessional in being a perfectionist, because you do not understand something really fundamental in being a creative. It's like you are always going to make things better. So you have to let go and just release, and then at a certain point work on something, incrementally build off of what you've released, rather than like, I'm going to work on this album for 10 years now. I'm going to work on this instrument for 10 years now. I'm just going to work on it for half a year. And more than that, within that half a year, I'm going to actually release my process as like bits and pieces of like creation as well. And then I'm going to just release this thing as a certain batch, learn from it, make another one that would be better.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it all depends what faculty you're doing, but like a musical instrument, of course it's a musical instrument. It's not taking people to the moon. It's not it's not saving people's lives in a hospital. So it doesn't actually need to be perfect.
That is a very good way of looking at it. I agree.
I mean, it might save people's lives in other respects, but come on.
Yeah. Psychologically, I'm sure that some people will be listening to this like, what are you talking about? I just need to hear that filter sweep and my heart.
My heart pumps. But but I mean, yeah, like it's amazing what people can achieve when they're in a rush. I think that's if you know that you've got loads of time on your hands, you don't get you mess about and stuff. The best things sometimes come when you're in a bind and you've got to get it done.
I agree.
Go ahead.
So how do you the museum, I think, is like the biggest new thing that you've released. I mean, in terms of like a really, really large project that incorporates a lot of projects in it.
Yeah, well, it just seemed like it's the same as a modular synth in a way. So the reason when I started, I made circuit bent instruments, and I felt like every time I was making a circuit bent instrument, I was just making something new, and I needed to, instead of doing that, build something that would all work together. So you're ending up building something bigger instead of constantly building something new and different, like a bunch of circuit bent toys. So that's when I started trying to incorporate the modular kind of idea where you plug them into each other, so it just gets bigger as a whole. And that's the same thinking as a museum thing, because after I built the music, some of the instruments, the problem is that a lot of the instruments aren't really that practical to actually use as instruments. Like, the idea of them are good, but then when you're actually confronted with them, it's all just a little bit like, oh my God, this is just so much work to actually get what you want done. And so they don't really have a place in kind of contemporary studio kind of setups. The only really reasonable place that you would see these sort of things is in some sort of museum thing. And I figured the museum seems like a perfect kind of project that just everything you do adds to it, if you see what I mean, like a modular synth, but it's a modular museum.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And then, like, how do you approach something like this? Because I mean, the logistics of like getting a space and getting people, I mean, like, do you do this all from your own budgets, or like, are you working alone to manage something like this? How do you even start?
I haven't got a clue. So what happens is, I don't know, like, there's a load of things that are like, I started and I just did not know how to do. And they just started just figuring it out, like designing and selling modular synth kits. I knew I wanted to do that at some point, but I just didn't know how to do it. And that's the same with the museum. And I don't know, it just sort of fell in place. Obviously, it was a bit of a pain in the ass, like having to organize everything, going through the jump. Like, I've learned so much. I've learned so much about bureaucratic hoops that you have to jump through, things like that, to actually get something like this done. And most of it I've just had to do myself. Obviously, I've made mistakes along the way, but I just started, and I guess I just was too stupid to not try to make it work. And
Persevere, just go through walls.
I didn't. It's a really weird one.
But then, do you actually hire people along the way, or are you really just like making all these phone calls, sending all these emails, getting people to, like, basically inspiring people to join your journey and saying, like, okay, we need to get this space to do this thing. It's important.
I mean, I employ a couple of people to help out at the museum when it's open, but most of everything else I've done by myself. I just, I've organized it all. Like, the problem is that basically, like, when I was in my 20s, I was in bands and stuff, and I've became very wary of working in collaboration with people at the minute, because it just, no matter what happens, goes a bit sour. I don't know why. It might be me, I don't know. So now I'm a bit stubborn and I have to do a lot myself, and the downside of that is I don't like, sometimes I get I just start, for instance, some things fall on the wayside. Like, I never check my phone anymore, so like, everybody who tries to contact me or message me or anything gets a tad annoyed with me, because I just that's one thing I've blocked off from my life, is just looking at any phone or screen or anything. So things fall on the wayside.
Yeah, no, I get that. I can actually really relate. I think it's really challenging to find people to work with. And when you find people to work with, it's really magical. Sometimes you meet people, and I think that what's really nice about the internet is that you could actually meet more people. So then you're not limited to only your physical surroundings, and all of a sudden you could actually meet other people to collaborate with.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're actually
Don't get me
doing.
wrong. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Don't get me wrong. A lot of projects I work with people, like a lot of people collaborating in a kind of like on a little project here and there and stuff, and working with people, chatting to them. But in the bigger picture, like, where it's just never worked working with somebody like, I'm just going off on one, because I've just realised as well. I've got a manager as well. Whoa, she's gonna be well annoyed with me. She's like, Sam, you didn't even mention it. So I've got a music manager, and I've had a music manager for about 8 years now, since and she helps us with organising. She hasn't helped us with the museum purely because it's not really music related, so I've had to do all of that stuff. But she just helps with making sure I don't forget about things, like, Sam, don't forget about, a lot of music related things. So yeah, I credit where credit's due. She's a very organized individual, and to be honest, I've been working with her all the time, and I don't know why I forgot about that. I'm just forgetting about. Oh, I'm going off on one. Sorry.
Yeah, you're talking about Claire. So, but
She's
Claire is
gonna be
also,
so annoyed with me.
but she's actually managing a lot of like really big artists.
She's managing. Yeah. So she's when I started working with her, she was working with somebody else, and I was being managed by them, and then they went all weird. So Claire took the reins, and it's very, very helpful to have somebody.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that when it comes to production and like managing things that work, and like you really need to get the planning done. You need to really get like otherwise you won't really. I mean, we wouldn't be able to even have this conversation.
Yeah, I would have
Because
forgot about it.
yeah, because as you said, no worries. I mean, I totally get it because like you're busy with your stuff. You want to make stuff. You don't want to answer your phone. Like I totally get that. Like normally I just put my phone aside. I'm like, okay, whatever. I'm just working on stuff now.
Yeah.
But I think there is a point to make on like collaborations. Like I feel like what happened with my kind of like I just started this about a year and a half ago. This Synth UX Academy.
Yeah.
And like at a certain point, I opened this Discord channel, and most of it was like people I met on Reddit, or like Brendan from Princeton University, who like really was one of the first people to initiate this with me. And slowly it became bigger, and it's like full of really, really interesting people. And at a certain point, I came up with this little idea of a modular kind of board. You could basically like all these footprints, you could put whatever knob, socket, switch wherever you want, and just patch it directly here with one wire, and your
Yeah.
microcontroller is here. And the whole idea of this is to just make like an open source kind of thing for people to
How
play
does that
around.
work? So it beats stuff and they use stripboard all the time. What shows that again? That's cool.
It's yeah, maybe you can see this.
Hey. Oh yeah, I see. Oh nice.
So like you have a switch here, for example, and you have a socket here, and you have a knob, and obviously knobs can be different sizes, and everything is wired to like the microcontroller is basically wired to a strip of pads here internally.
Yeah.
And then you could just decide if this is a teensy, for instance, then your ground is number 1. Then you just connect a wire here to ground from pit 1, and it would just route everything to ground. And same thing with VCC. And then the only thing you need to do is just like, okay, so this pad is number 55. It has a wire here directly going into A9 here, which is going to be connected. And that's like controlling the filter sweep. That's it.
So is that virtual analog synth of FM simple?
I mean, you could design whatever instrument with this. You could make a sequencer with an Arduino, or you could put a Pico on this, or you could put a daisy seed and make like a granular synth with it if you want.
That's cool.
But what the point that I'm trying to say is that I just sent an email to everybody and said, hey, I'm looking for open source for developers that would be willing to make open source instruments with this. And like people, just like dozens of people sending me emails like, yeah, I have this idea and that idea and this idea. And like all of a sudden you realize that because you are so open to the whole world and you're just sharing ideas, people really want to just collaborate because they're genuinely interested. And like it really expands because you're not really constrained to the physical space you live in. And I think that's really inspiring when it comes to collaborations. But I totally hear you. It's really hard to collaborate because like especially when like money gets involved. Like I have no idea how to like incorporate a financial layer into this because I've been all my life an artist and then a teacher, and like some people are like and like you try to learn you know what happens, you try to learn business stuff on YouTube like you're used to learning electronics or art stuff, and you're like, oh my god, how do I even start? Like the people here seem so sleazy in the like business world. Like where do I?
It's a crazy world, isn't it? Like everything like that. Yeah, and that's the other thing about the internet though, like you say, going back to collaborations, there's so many great people like on Discord and all the different things with so much varying skills Like, for instance, this project I'm working with right here, so I didn't, there was a guy that emailed called Mark, and he's made the code to translate some things to MegaHow, and
Yeah,
I could never have done that. I'm not codely inclined, but he's a smart dude.
that's awesome.
And yeah, but in that video, just with these kind of collaborations, I try to do like an interview with obviously the person that's done the coding, and pop it in somewhere. I've done it a few times.
Yeah. I think that's really valuable for both parties. It's amazing when you can actually find people who have the right mindset, the one that you have, and they just want to make stuff, you know? Like if something comes out of it afterwards, that's amazing. But even if not, it's just about like we actually managed to make this thing and it's alive now.
Yeah.
I think that's what I find really inspiring about your work, the fact that like things are actually complete and
Oh, I don't
like,
know. You know,
dude, it
it's
is
funny.
complete. Like you have to give that to yourself, because like bottom line at the end, like I look at these projects on YouTube, they are working. Even if they're not working half a minute afterwards, doesn't matter. It's like, like I always say to my students, it's like you need to make the instrument work just enough so you'll be able to make a video off of it, because the video will live long after the instrument actually is active.
Yeah, sure, yeah. But then there's also aspirations of just having it working all the time. And there's another thing, like so there's a couple of people that I definitely aspire to, and that's funnily enough something I've noticed about these people. So there's just Henry Dagg and the Nervous Squirrel. Both of them make musical instruments, and they also work for a load of other things. But you go to build their houses and their places or something. But I haven't been to Henry's yet. But they works. You go up to the machine, and they have taken it further. They've just made sure it just works all the blooming time, and that is a very aspiring thing. Because yeah, like there's at the museum, over at the museum, like there's Nervous Squirrel's owl organ, and
Mhm.
it's just one of those things that just always works. You don't need to worry about it. And there's a couple of others that just always work, like the 1,000 oscillator mega drone, that just always works. You turn it on, you don't need to worry about it. It just works. There's a few others, but there's some that just don't always work, and that's the problem. I'm aspiring to being able to have something that's everything. You could just plug it in and forget about it. You can't do that with something like the Game Boy Mega Machine, and that's the problem. That's what I've found out with working with Furbies and Game Boys, is they're just not always going to work, which is a sad thing. But something like that's running on an Arduino, that's doing something. If you think about having mechanical items in the machine, then there is a chance that it's going to need servicing. It will probably break down, and these are all things that probably sometimes, if you're making something, you need to take into account when planning it out. If you want it to last for a while, maybe don't have it mechanical or something, or
Yeah.
make sure it's built well.
I think that getting something to be built well is like a step further from like, I mean, I guess that most people I work with, well, I guess now it's a bit different, but like I come from education, so like artists want to become more professional, they join. I teach at the Design Academy in Eindhoven in the Netherlands,
Yeah,
and they're brilliant. These people are crazy creative and like motivated and like working like mad. Um, and what we try to focus on is to make things work just enough so you're incrementally growing. And I guess that, not I guess, but like there is a whole craft into like making something from this is a prototype that is half working into
oh
something
yeah,
like this is a complete instrument that is working and will like I could actually produce a not even like reproduce, but just produce one that is working really, really good even 2 years from now. That is a whole craft on its own. And then
yeah.
reproduction in a company, that is, yeah, I
Oh,
mean,
that's a whole other thing. Yeah,
yeah.
prototyping is one thing. Yeah, there's one thing to prototype. Yeah, and it's great to, yeah, getting it working is, there's definitely a skill to getting prototypes done, isn't there? Like but you just got to just keep on doing it. That's the main thing, is just persisting at it. Like, okay, this one doesn't always work. Just learn why it doesn't work and don't make that mistake next time.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's what I'd probably say to if I was, yeah. I don't know. Like, so is it quite a problem just not getting it working to start with?
For students.
Yeah, for students, yeah.
Yeah, I think that especially the students that I start working with, they would come from like the most technical one would be pretty good with mechanical stuff, but most of them would be like they could either paint really well or maybe do some 2D stuff or maybe sculpt, maybe work with wood or metal. But they would not know how to like they would not know what a resistor is.
Yeah.
Or like
Well,
they've heard of an Arduino, but they would not know how to start or like download a library from Adafruit. So like we go through in like one semester, we basically go from the point where they don't know anything to at the end of the semester they have an exhibition.
that's good.
So yeah, and the challenge is like my vision of education is like how do you get someone from how do you get someone to be self-taught? You learn on your own how to learn in school,
Okay.
because in school normally like what they asked me, like when they hired me about 8 years ago,
Yeah.
a former teacher of mine asked me if I could teach Illustrator, and I laughed. I was like, "You're not serious. I mean, I'm not even using Illustrator anymore. Like these things, they evolve all the time. You need to teach them how to just find information, basically."
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, and then like when I came up with my own course is basically like there is an interactive art festival happening in half a year from now, and you guys are going to come up with a concept, prototype it a few times, and then exhibit it. And you're going to have an online exhibition and a physical exhibition. How do you figure all this out? And I'm going to be there with you through the process. So like when you get stuck, like we'll find a way. It's all about failure. Like you need to fail a few times to get to the point that you'll be able to do something like this.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so yeah, and it's actually working. Like I think that the best thing that happens is when you have like a graduation project and you really see that students really have taken what they've done with you, and now they're doing their own thing and they know how to handle all the different parts of the process, and they can learn on their own all the different things.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
that's it's funny you say about what like uh teaching how to find information. I think that's that's a very important thing, especially with prototyping and building things, because you work in things, even like I don't know hardly any correct sensors. It's just if you don't know the right sensor, then you need to find out where to find that sensor or what sensor is required and stuff.
Yeah.
You're always
Yeah.
learning.
Yeah, yeah, and like the way that like also in academic world, especially in the art, you don't really have a lot of like the budgets are really low for teaching. So I had to find a lot of interesting ways to get students to find information quickly because I just don't have enough time to teach.
Yeah.
So the Discord thing came like really valuable, because then I can just say, just like if you have a question about your project, just put it on Discord and see if someone is going to answer. And
Yeah.
luckily enough, people are just like really generous with their time. So they would be just like back and forth. People who are like professional engineers released a bunch of things to the world. And they're like, okay, just like talking to someone who is literally just starting out with an Arduino and does not even know how to finish an if statement.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and that's really inspiring, like you, sorry?
No, I don't know. I know it. Yeah. I was sorry. I was joking. Yeah. No, you're right.
Yeah,
That's good.
but
Yeah.
I think that like the fact that you have a small environment like this, sometimes I also push them to go to Reddit and ask questions, but Reddit is like
Yeah.
it could be a really hostile environment. So you
Oh,
learn
can it?
to,
Oh well, yeah. There's a lot of hostile places on the internet, aren't there? Like I think it's some people don't take kindly to people asking questions and who are obviously trying to fight, like not really sure, but trying to be sure, but then they take an advantage of the opportunity by putting them taking them down a peg or two. That happens everywhere, doesn't it?
yeah,
Not very
yeah.
nice. It's
No, it's
just,
not. Yeah.
yeah, it's not cool. But like that's one of the things about doing videos, for instance, is I still don't really know. I don't know much comparatively, and if I'm doing something, if anything is even slightly wrong, you'll bet your bottom dollar that somebody will pick up on it and comment, and sometimes rather quite negatively. But you learn like it's just a learning curve, because what they've said you obviously take into account. And you know, I've learned a lot of things with, you know, a lot of electronics and stuff, and some of them are a bit OTT. I always find that there's a lot of over the top advice, you know, like let's say, I don't know, like I'm trying to think of an example. Let's say you ask a question like I want to change 12 volts to 5 volts, and you just say that on a forum, and there's those forums where there's like somebody just tries to barrage you with just over the top, you know, things that really in the grand scheme of things do not matter to making an Arduino project. But you know, they're going to tell you about all of the different things and be like, oh, you know, it's like they'll even go down the EMF or something, some daft things that don't even matter to the person that's asking the question, because they're just starting, they're messing around trying to make prototypes. But it's just, yeah, so it's about being careful where you ask. But luckily there's places like you say, like the Discord thing that you've done. As long as there's the right attitude there, it's a great learning place.
Yeah, I make sure. I mean, it's actually quite hard to get to the Discord. There is like a whole forum that you need to fill in. Like it makes it, I make it really hard. I really pick the people in, and we're not that many. I think we're maybe 350 people. And it's working really well because of that. But let's get back to education for a moment, because what you said about people that would just give comments like really over the top. You were teaching quite a lot of fairly complex things, and you're really simplifying them. Is there like a certain method that you found that's working really well, that just resonates with people?
I think it helps that I'm an absolute dumbass. So it helps that I'm a bit not the, you know, like I in order to understand some things, I have to make them very very plain Jane. So I think I just talk about how I visualize it, I guess, because you know, I'm aware that I'm not the what's the word, not the brightest person, so I have to work twice as hard, really. And that's where the descriptions, where my describing things come from, is basically just how I try to get through it. Because yeah, you know, I'm not like top of class of anything. I just have to work hard.
I can relate. You're basically self-taught, right?
Yeah.
So like, did you actually even go to any like university level for anything?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I did. I studied chemistry for a year at university. I
Right.
realized that's not me. Wasted my money for a year, and then went to do music for a year, and then had to move to London because I got signed in a band, and I had to move. So yeah. So I've done 2 years, but I never finished anything at university.
And then like how long did it take you to actually start your own just like learning things and starting your YouTube channel? Was it that like
Okay, well, so I went to university, like you know, I tried to make a YouTube channel like first time about 10 years ago, and it didn't work. And I tried again, then I tried a band, it didn't work. So I think starting to try, and then I was trying to make it like a something that stuck for about 6 or 7 years before anything actually stuck. You know, but I wasn't really doing many things. The only time that I decided to start sharing my hobby of electronics was I don't know, like 2016, but I had been doing electronics for like 10 years before that. So
yeah, and all pretty much just like going online, trying to get some information and building your own thing.
Yeah, actually, there's a guy called Andrew Duff who makes stuff with Vectrex, video art stuff with Vectrex, and I went to one of his talks one time, and he said, I've learned everything on the internet about this, so I've just got to give back a little bit by doing this talk to keep on, you know, progressing and evolving what is on the internet, because 9 times out of 10 the stuff that is on the internet is not from particularly academic folk. It's more like some person in their garage just figuring it out and then writing it down. Like, unless you're hunting for, you know, a PhD thesis or something, a lot of the websites are just, you know, hobbyists, which are great. For me, I think it's good because I can't read. So yeah, I don't think I've ever finished reading a book in my life.
Yeah, I think sometimes I find myself reading quite a bit when it comes to learning new stuff. But
Yeah,
sometimes people share with me like books about electronics. I'm like, how do
uh,
where do I even start? God damn it, that is just too much. I need, like, I think that the best way for me to learn is through videos. So and
yeah,
some videos are better than other. You know, you probably know Moritz Klein.
yeah.
Yeah, so I think he's fantastic. Like the amount of knowledge that he shares and how
Yeah,
he really simplifies things and get it to the public, get the information to the public. I think he's doing a really, really good job.
yeah. The descriptions and stuff is it's really useful. It's really helpful. Like, yeah, it's just hopefully it gets easier and easier over time. Like, you know, there's more videos about things. I just it's amazing. Like, you can now, we live in a world where technology means that if we have a question about something like how to do something, you could search up a video and the first time you try it, probably won't be that good, but you could get all right at it. You know, I've learned so many random things probably wrong. I mean, you can't, like, there are things that you probably shouldn't learn on the internet, but you know,
Yeah.
like, I don't know, yeah, some dangerous things or something structural with a building or something, but you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that when it comes to really engineering, like someone is building something for, like, I don't know, hospital tools, you want
But
to
yeah,
make sure that they actually know what they're doing.
it's like,
Um,
yeah, it's weird. You know, we're in a faculty that just, it doesn't really matter. It can be wrong and still be right
yeah.
in a way. And that's another thing. Discovering it's just what is it? The attitudes of engineers in different faculties are vastly different. Like very different. You know, like technicians and stuff in something that has to be right. Um, you know, they look at it completely different. It's just a different kind of mindset.
Yeah.
And that's fair enough. But yeah, luckily in art, in music and art, it doesn't have to technically be correct
Yeah.
much. I mean, it's got to work.
Yes,
Somewhat.
I mean, it's got to work to a certain degree, you know. Yeah. But like, let's wrap things up. I know that you're quite busy and you're going to move now to help a few people.
Right, what time is it? Yeah, I don't even know what time it is.
Yeah, it's it's like 10 in 10 minutes you probably need to leave.
Oh,
Um,
so
but
what is it?
yeah,
Quarter two.
sorry.
Blimey,
Yeah.
time's flying.
Yeah, time is flying. But I think this was a really interesting conversation. Like, how do I wrap this up? Let's just like ask if you would. I think there was a lot of really interesting advice. Like, you didn't even we didn't discuss it as an advice
Yeah.
for young creatives. But like in general, if you would think about someone like you at the beginning of your career, look, you know, for some advice, how to move forward, how to get started. Like, what would you tell them to do? Go on
Uh,
YouTube.
yeah, just go with your urge. Just if you want to do it, I think the most important thing is don't talk about it. Just do it. That's another thing is that that's one thing I learned quite a bit actually. I was building one of the first things that I built. I was trying to build. I started too big. I've got to be honest. I started by cutting a load of holes in my guitar to make a MIDI keyboard in the guitar. So all the wiring was around the back, and the idea was great. And then I had to do it. Drilled all the holes. That was the easy bit. And then it was the case of wiring everything up. And nowadays I'd probably get it done in like a couple of hours, but it took me like 3 or 4 weeks to do it. And then my dad, because I was living at my dad's, and he said, he was looking at it. It was like, why haven't you finished it yet? Why don't you just sit down and just do it? And I realized I was looking at myself. I was just like, yeah, that's a good point. I only sit down and like solder for like 20 minutes. You've just got to sit there and just do it. If you have an idea and it's big, then the only way it's going to get done is just doing it. Unfortunately, and it's a big lesson.
I think that's the best way to finish the
Oh,
podcast.
what's that? Shia LaBeouf. Just Do it.
No, but I think I'm yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, nothing. I mean, I thank God for we're talking, because that would have been a right slog. It's not
This is
even that.
beautiful. Look, this is really tight.
Plenty of soldering. No shorts either. Pretty good. 16. I think I've done 15. Oh no. Shit. Well, I've got to build it again. I've just made one.